Welcome, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 5 of Crossing the Line with Greg Heym. Thanks, Ray. That was kind of weak, though. Work on that, will you?
He was standing for it. Standing ovation.
He's working. He's still walking around checking cameras. Like, this is as good as I look. Nadler's a handsome guy. That's Scott Nadler from CrossCountry Mortgage. How's it going?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good.
Today is February 3rd. Just like to throw that out there in case something changes dramatically after we film, before you watch. Now, we had a big trade this weekend. So let's just start with that.
I get all these newsletters about finance or politics or economics, and every single one of them mentioned this trade, which they normally don't talk about sports, but it just shows the magnitude of a trade like this.
It's about money as much as anything. So for those of you who aren't big NBA fans, I just gotten over the beating that the Knicks took at the hands of the Lakers, and without Anthony Davis too. You would have thought that would have been a easy
LeBron
game.
Seemed to have an extra pep in his step, and I think he probably knew something was coming.
And the articles I read said he did not know.
Greg.
I'm just saying what I read. So the trade is Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. Basically, there's other parts to it, but that's not important. Now, the funny thing is the stuff that came out. Like, why would Dallas trade a guy who's the face of the franchise? Has the third highest average points per game in the history of the NBA, only behind Wilt and Michael Jordan is first. And that's only by decimal places, by the way. And why would LA trade their center? Like, what are they going to do now for a big man?
Well, I think it's clear why LA would do it. But this is also the first trade in my lifetime where the first reaction was the reporter's account was hacked. This could not be a real thing. That was people's first reaction.
After midnight, I think it was on Saturday. It was weird to try to say, like, does this actually happen? Did I dream that last night?
And normally when something like this happens, a player of Luka's magnitude gets traded, there's talk about it. There's rumblings about it.
Well,
and there was nothing.
Well, apparently one thing was that allegedly Dallas, and particularly their GM, was worried about his conditioning. That he plays a lot of minutes. Guy's a triple-double machine. I don't know. And then I was reading this morning.
But why not cast as wide? We talk to real estate agents all the time. Real estate agent is listing a home. They want to cast as wide a net as possible to get as many offers as they can.
They wanted Anthony Davis. They want his defense.
But then why not ask for more?
I don't know.
There's this is where you see a lot of
first round pick in this.
These conspiracy theorists are starting to come out.
Well, the other thing is, not this coming off season, but the next one, Doncic would be eligible for a Supermax deal. So this could potentially cost him like $116 million.
Being in LA, though, something tells me he'll be able.
But that's the other kicker.
Make that up.
He goes from a state with no state
income tax. Yep, of course. But I think from the NBA's perspective, you have the Celtics who just won the championship. You have the Knicks who are doing really well, and have the Lakers have a star for the next decade or so. Right. So from their perspective,
they need to replace LeBron. Although LeBron says he's going to be sticking around for a while.
They got Bronny.
He's not that good. So anyway, and I know, what does this have to do with economics?
Everything.
The money part of it, to me, is I think why they did it, and I think the Dallas GM basically admitted that they didn't want to have this looming, and how are they going to pay him a Supermax contract and field a team?
An ESPN analyst said this is the biggest short in sports history. Dallas shorting Luka Doncic. Well, and we'll see. And we'll see if this can pay off.
If that can't motivate him to...
Agreed.
And it's funny because who are they banking on now to score? Kyrie. Kyrie's hurt all the time.
Kyrie and Anthony Davis, two guys that get hurt a lot.
A lot. Davis is hurt now.
Yep.
So anyhow, good luck. I'm focused on the Knicks, and hopefully OG's not too injured.
Agreed.
Well, that was our weekend. Thinking about that trade, talking about it. My son was like, his mind blown by it. It's funny how often superstars are traded in their prime. Mm-hmm. At least this was a superstar for superstar trade. I was reading like what Wilt Chamberlain got traded for and what Kareem got, and they were terrible deals.
By the way, two guys who go to the Lakers. The Lakers always find a way
to get... The Lakers are involved in the biggest trades.
To get these superstars, always.
Because it's L.A. That's Jerry Buss. That's what he built there and what they maintain. It's Showtime still. You know, it's the place to play.
You would think the Knicks would be able to land some of these stars.
Well, the problem is 2 world championships in your entire existence does not draw people, and a lot of dysfunction over the years, which has gotten better.
We're getting better, for sure. For sure.
Unless Jim Dolan's involved, it better. I better not say that. He won't let me enter Madison Square Garden. No facial recognition. Anyway, because you heard about that, right?
Of course.
He wasn't letting the lawyers in.
Oh, yeah.
He's also the one that blocked the Jet Stadium on the west side. Anyhow, this isn't the Pat McAfee show.
Out there, by the way.
Yes, well, we should film that. See, Ray's putting his body on the line for the show. What are we doing? We're sitting here. I'm playing with
you need someone sacrificing.
And Alfred E. Newman.
The dirty work.
Yes. And then he's singing, I'm a fool to do your dirty work. It's that yacht rock documentary. I can't get it out of my head. Anyhow, coming to you as always from Studio 1873, decorated by our friends at the Everset.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, so we're going to sum up the economic news of last week. There were 3 huge things.
A lot of things happening.
Right, and we'll do them in chronological order. The first one I entitled in my blog, "The Fed says you'll get nothing and like it." You know, I had Caddyshack on my mind when Judge Smales tells Spalding he can't have his hamburger, cheeseburger, or hot dog. So no rate cuts this month. Now maybe Spalding was a little upset and surprised he couldn't get any food, but this didn't surprise anybody, right?
No. I think, it was not a surprise at all. We'll see what they do in March. But one of the differences is in the comments, and that's what the markets
What they took out.
But also the fact that Jerome Powell did mention shelter. He talked about the shelter costs, which is something we've talked about here. But I'd like to go into that as well, because that's such an interesting component for us. Well, when you look at PCE and CPI, a large component of both of those metrics is shelter, right? I think 18% of the core PCE is shelter, 46%, 43%.
Well, and it's been driving the number. We always see every month in the BLS report on CPI. It always says shelter accounted for 50% of the increase, 60%, 70% of the increase.
And just to be clear, it's
funny they still call it shelter. Like we joke about it. It's like
because
medieval times.
It doesn't include mortgages, doesn't include mortgage payments.
Right.
It's rents and what a homeowner thinks they could rent their home out
owner's
for.
Equivalent rent.
Owner's equivalent rent. The frustrating part here is, as we've talked about so many times at this point, the outdated data. Because you have PCE is showing that the shelter portion of PCE is 4.3%. I think for CPI, it's 4.6%. CoreLogic, Zillow, Apartment List, they have these numbers at 1.5%.
Yeah, well, it's the 6-month intervals with CPI.
With those panels.
It's like, what are you paying in rent, Scott Nadler? Okay, we'll see you in 6 months.
Exactly.
And then but the problem is, and I believe this, that we would have thought we would have seen more progress already, because it's been, a while. They've had time to go back and check.
Using CoreLogic's numbers, though, and all these other sources that are using real-time data, CPI would be at 1.8% right now. I think core PCE would be at 2.2%.
Well, and I think that's why the Fed has been saying that, hey, we're well above 2%, no matter which metric you look at. Particularly, it's weird to have core remaining so much higher than the headline number.
But I'm saying I don't think we are as high as they think we are.
But that's how they measure it. That's the thing. It's like here in New York, they value co-ops and condos as if they were rental buildings, which means the value of one building is usually less than what one unit sells for. When your methodology is in a certain way, look, I get it. They shouldn't use sales prices because it's really about what your home costs, not what you could sell it for. Like what's your living expenses, your shelter expenses to live in there? Mm-hmm. If your home is appreciated in value, that doesn't change what you're paying for it. So I get the logic, and we have to understand. I'd be interested to see if anybody does a paper on like when the last time housing was this much of a problem.
There's a mortgage economist that we subscribe to, and he sent a letter to Trump, basically stating stating what the methodology currently is and what it should be,
Right.
and like real data and reasons behind it. It's a fascinating article, but I think it's just a matter of time. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
I don't know. BLS doesn't change their methodology easily. They don't, and maybe it'll look like they're just doing it to. If you do it now, it looks like you're just doing it to hide something, even though we all understand that home price appreciation is slowing. But again, that doesn't mean what
Didn't
people...
they change the definition of what a recession is, of what inflation is? They did.
Yes,
that
a
recently
recession
also.
used to be 2 negative quarters of GDP. Now it's a marked downturn in employment. It's very, very subjective now.
Yeah.
There's not the two.
What
quarter
you
rule.
and I are talking about right now is pure numbers. It's data, and we're looking at outdated numbers versus real time data. So I'd hope that they would come to their senses soon and eventually look at what this data actually is.
Or just look at another metric, like you said. But again, these are the guys who and ladies who told us that inflation was transitory for months as they let it run way out of control. So we're going to go to Washington and straighten them out. We're going to bring Ray too.
Season 2, episode 6 in DC.
Yeah, season 2, episode 7 in lockup. Imagine economics crime or something like that. Hopefully they have a segregation unit in jail for economists and mortgage people.
We would do well there, Greg.
Yeah, probably the only people in there. At least now the financial crisis is long behind us. The other thing that they released a statement that is like Mad Libs, basically. The economy has whatever. It's like fill in the blank kind of thing. But they took out a statement that they had made progress towards their 2% goal because it's not true. You haven't made any progress. We had some progress in the first half of last year. It was coming down steadily. Since then, it's drifting up. And if you look at the headline PCE number, and we'll get to that in a minute, it's going up. It went up last month. The core number was essentially flat, down a little bit. So the question is, when do we get our rate cut now? Well, you're not going to get it in March. The odds that are published are sitting about 18%. I think it's 0%. Unless next week's jobs number is incredibly weak and the following month is incredibly, maybe then you do it because their meeting is March 18th and 19th. So, but I don't think that's going to happen based on everything we've seen. Initial claims for unemployment are still amazingly low. And there doesn't seem to be anything that can stop companies from hiring people. Yeah. Except hurricanes and Boeing strikes. Yeah.
Agreed.
So
we have seen these numbers come out and surprise us, though.
Yeah.
So to your point, we can see what these two.
Hey, the
jobs
ratings
numbers
are better when there's more drama, right? Are they better when there's more drama, Lena? She nods her head. She thinks so. Look, we're talking about second half of this year, probably. A lot of people saying late spring, early summer. I don't know. The interesting about the March meeting is their revised economic projections will come out. They come out sort of at the end of every quarter. So we'll see what they're thinking, even though there won't be any move to announce, but they will. We'll see where they're thinking, how many cuts they may actually plan for this year. The bet is still, 225 basis point cuts. Who knows? Remember, those cuts from last year are going to start to really show up in the economy, which isn't great in the fight against inflation. Again, the only thing that's going to get mortgage rates down and get inflation down is slower economic growth. And that seamlessly ties us into Thursday, what came out, which was the GDP report. Now, at 2.3% annual rate of growth, it was less than expected, right? And you go, that's cool. Plus, the prior 2 months were 3.1%, quarters were 3.1% and 3%. All right, that's definitely slower growth. But, and I have to kill all the joy on this one, but it's in being fair. We always say you've got to look at the components of GDP. C plus I plus G plus NX. Consumption, what means got by when we're out and about. Not that we hang together outside the studio. He never calls me. He's always doing something cooler. I for investment is the easiest way. You think about inventories that could build up. People build homes, open, sell them, things of that nature. G is government, and NX is net exports, which is almost always negative, but was not negative in the fourth quarter.
And consumption being the biggest
but
component.
about 70% of the number.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in 1 second. So 2.3%. Okay, that's definitely slower than it's been. The average annual rate of growth over the last 20 years is 2.1%. So that's still kind of hot, right? That's telling us something. But a deeper dive into the numbers, the personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, or stuff we buy, for lack of a better term, rose at a 4.2% annual pace in the fourth quarter, their biggest increase since the first quarter of 23.
Wild.
So right there, people are spending.
People are spending.
Are you giving them the money? I'm not giving them the money.
But dipping into their savings, right? Wasn't that a component of it? Where
the savings rate went down, yeah.
Correct.
Because they got to keep up with inflation. That's why, again, you see more people taking more than one job.
Yes. Which is also something that Powell mentioned in his comments regarding the hiring slowing down. It's becoming harder for people to find a job. And that's why you see the quit rate also is very low as well.
Well, the other thing is it went from being easy as anything and people quitting their jobs before they found a new job, they're very confident, to a more normal environment.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I can't get a job at all.
Is it a trend though? Is it because it's moving? That's something that obviously the Fed's going to be
well, the first
focusing
number,
on.
The first employment-related number we'll get next week is the JOLTS number, which basically tells us about job openings and labor turnover.
Which is also flawed, by the way.
Well, it's dated by the time you get it. It's a couple of months old. But I know we talked about, jobs being offered in multiple cities because they're remote and stuff like that. And it's also been around for only about 20 years. So there's not a lot of data on it. So personal consumption expenditures up 4.2%. That's great. Government spending was up. Net exports was positive. So it was gross private domestic investment, or investment. Some people call it inventory, stuff like that. Stuff sitting on the shelves waiting to be sold.
Government spending, also a big topic that we've been seeing, is
going up.
Doge.
Yeah, well,
right?
Doge,
and
we'll wait and see what happens because, the government has not stopped spending money yet. But This is the fourth quarter data.
Right.
The gross private domestic investment fell for the first time since the first quarter of 23. And it was a 5.6% decline. So what that means is that subtracted basically 1% from GDP. So if that number had just been flat, GDP would have been 3.3%, and we'd be talking about how hot the economy really is. So while the headline number looks like things are going in the right direction, looking at what really drives that number, which is the personal consumption expenditures, still a lot to worry about. And that's something the Fed, I'm sure, is paying close attention to. Again, we're all shaking our head at it with the, $1.2 trillion in credit card debt, the increased delinquencies. Credit card rates have not come down significantly, even with what the Fed did last year. It's become harder and harder. But one of the things that is still happening for most people is wage gains are outpacing pricing gains. How long that'll last, we'll see. Because as we talk about now that the job market isn't going as hot as it was, but still pretty warm.
We'll see if wages start to
flatten out a bit,
stagnate a little bit.
For sure. All right, so that was Thursday. Friday was our buddy Core PCE, which we love. But before we get to that,
the Fed loves.
Yes, the Fed loves it. Before we get on to that, we have to take a break from our sponsor, CrossCountry Mortgage, and their amazingly handsome pitchman.
Your dream home is closer than you think. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and I'm here to get you the perfect loan to match your perfect home. From first-time home buyers to seasoned homeowners, I've helped clients make their moves with confidence. Ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying experience? Let's get you moving today. Call me and let's turn those dreams into keys.
All right, we're back. So core PCE, personal consumption expenditures, inflation up 2.8% over the past year. Right away, that tells you, we're not near the goal yet, right? Can't spike the football. And this is like the lowest of the core numbers. CPI is higher. So
also, as we talked about earlier, shelter is a smaller component for PC than it is for CPI.
PCE actually gets the more complete data on spending and retail sales. That's the data that goes into GDP, right? So they can adjust. Whereas for CPI, they'll say, Scott Nadler, what percentage of your income are you spending on, or your spending is on housing? We joked several months ago about alcohol and how people were grossly underestimating their alcohol consumption when it came to CPI.
Right.
But PCE tells the truth. So
during COVID, it'd be interesting to relook at what those numbers were, because people were spending a lot on
That's
alcohol.
the one thing that, you know, they didn't close was liquor stores. So again, good first half in getting that number down. Second half, no. And the headline number is in the wrong direction. So this is why the Fed took out that sentence in their statement, because it's not true. You haven't made any progress. It's like my son with a project he's working on. Have you made any progress? Well, yeah, no. Let me see. Well, you got no progress. It's
like someone going to the gym who wants to lose weight, and they start to lose weight a little bit, and then a month later they revert back to where they previously were. That's what's happening.
Or in my
inflation.
case, you lose weight and then you go to Texas for a weekend for a family event, and you do nothing but eat Tex-Mex barbecue and fried chicken, and you gain a couple of pounds.
You also lost weight from a surgery. Also,
well, and a sickness.
From a sickness. You didn't have like surgery to lose weight.
No, I did not have any of that kind of stuff.
You had surgery. Which...
No, but I'm still doing a pretty good job. I've lost the weight I've gained.
You look good
in Texas. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not Scott Nadler skinny, but
no,
you know,
I could use a couple pounds, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, I got some to sell or get for free.
Perfect partnership.
I'll take some of your hair. Can we make that trade?
It's kind of thin, Greg.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want this.
Ray, you hold them. I'll hit them. So 2.8% higher. The markets didn't go crazy because, as I always say, better than expected, worse than expected, or as expected. This was in line with expectations. Mm-hmm. So we were expecting the number to stink, for lack of a better term. So we look at these three things, and the takeaway from that is, number one, economy's still growing at a very solid pace. Hiring, consumer spending still high, right? I mean, the jobs numbers have been great. The unemployment number's low. 4.2% growth, annual rate of growth in consumer spending. Yeah, everything looks really good. Number two, inflation's above the Fed's target. You add those up and forget about any rate cuts soon, right? Is that?
I will say, though, the in line with expectations, I should get that tattoo, because anytime we see that, rates are stable. And we don't like so much volatility. You know, when they say it surpassed expectations or it's below expectations, you see so much volatility in the market, and it's really disruptive. So when you see that, you know, the last week or so, rates have been pretty stable. We haven't seen the volatility that we've been seeing, which makes things a whole lot easier for anyone who's in the market to buy a home right now. Because if I speak to them on a Monday and then speak to them again on a Friday and rates are around the same, that keeps them in the market.
Right.
Whereas when I'm speaking to them every day and rates are changing by 0.25%, it makes things very, very challenging.
And it's been very challenging to get people used to a volatile bond market, because for decades it wasn't very volatile.
I know.
It was very predictable. Rates were very low. Inflation was well contained.
And we didn't even talk about DeepSeek, you know, what happened last week. But when that came out, you have investment dollars that can either go in the stock market or go in the bond market, and you had money flow into the bond market, which was a good day for rates.
Yeah.
But, you know, keeping things in line with expectations as of right now is a very good thing for us.
And the way the bond market works is, if people are buying bonds, it drives the price up. When the price goes up, the rate goes down.
Exactly.
Because let's say you buy a $1,000 bond for $900, that's a higher rate of return than if I pay $950 for it. So that's the inverse relationship between prices and rates, just as a public service announcement.
Exactly.
Because the more you know, the less you do not know.
Well said, Gregory.
Well, and before we give you some more great knowledge, we have one more break to take.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
All right, and we're back, and now we're going to move to housing, because we all have to live somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm, we do.
And it's kind of how we get paid and earn our living. So we had the second straight weekly decline in mortgage rates, although it went from 6.96 to 6.95. Not a big. Was your phone ringing off the hook?
We'll take it.
I know we'll take it, but did you get noticeably busier last week with that slow tick down?
We've been busy, but not because of that.
Right. Well, I could see that, but it's hopeful. You know, you want to see
for sure.
Plus, we don't want it to cross 7. Once it crosses 7, it's like it crosses the line
Psychologically.
Ha-ha.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't even get a clap at it. I thought that was
That was good. We should cut that piece.
You better start laughing because they're not going to get funnier than that. So we have that, and so you're saying that people are kind of staying in the market because rates aren't going up and down and confusing them. How about new entrants in the market? Did
look, I think overall activity is down, but there is activity.
Okay.
You know, I think someone in my position, real estate agents were definitely working harder for sure. But there's activity. There are people buying for sure. My phone is ringing. I'm running. You know,
that's me calling you to talk about the show, and you don't answer.
It might be you, but no. I mean, we're our team and I were running 7 to 8 credit reports a day.
Okay, that's good.
For new prospective clients. So there's definitely activity, but slower for sure.
Yeah, it's
it's also seasonal.
It doesn't feel like spring yet, although it is a little bit warmer today.
Today was nice.
I had ice all over my car.
Walking over here was pleasant.
Okay.
Normally it's not.
Yeah, no. Well, when the wind chill's in the single digits, going to Texas last week, I got to experience. It's 20 degrees in the morning there, but then it's like 60 in the afternoon.
Where in Texas were you?
Fort Worth. Keller technically. It was my niece Maggie's communion. It was a nice time. So that was not this past week, the weekend before.
Did you get boots and a hat? I could see you rocking that.
Her and her sister do have boots and a hat. I did not get that, but they don't walk. It's too hot to wear boots and a hat. The hat if you're out in the sun, I guess, but you don't see as many people with cowboy boots as you would think. But then again, if you go to the stockyards in Fort Worth, where they still stampede the cattle like the same time every day. But I'll be back out there in April for AC/DC. Excited about that. All right, so we had seen an increase in existing home sales, which again are counted when the sales close for the last couple of months because of the rate drops through last September. We said you're going to see this pick up because there's that time when they call Scott Nadler, get the approval. Then they look and they sign a contract and they close. That we were going to start to see this show up in the pending home sales, that we're going to see a massive decline because of the rate hike since October. And that's exactly what happened. 5.5% down in 1 month, which is a big decline. And, you know, this may flatten out a bit now that rates have flattened out a little bit, but it's hard to tell. But, you know, we're just gloating, right? Because we said this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of your predictions came true.
One. That's one, right? Put a 1 in the win column and let's erase the other column. No, I look, it's hard enough to find a home in many parts of the U.S. because inventory is still low, but at least the supply is over 4 months, according to NAR's latest numbers. It's not 1 month, which it used to be. But then, you know, the rates and people do the math. And then there's another thing that has made this even harder, and that's homeowners insurance. So there's now a term called disaster discounts. And buyers, the Wall Street Journal had an article on this, buyers want a discount because they are buying a home that's in an area that might be subjected to hurricanes, wildfires, stuff like that. And companies are pulling away from these high-risk areas, which is limiting. I've complained numerous times. I don't live in a flood zone in Long Island. I don't live near that close to the water. And I had to took me 2 brokers to find a homeowner's insurance policy.
I could tell you, this is, in the past, every client that we work with needs to have a homeowner's insurance policy. So we'll get the commitment letter for the client. We'll send them a recommendation, or they'll call their own person. Within a day, we get a quote, we get a policy, we get something. Nowadays, Greg, it could take 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks for them to finalize their insurance because they're not getting what they expected. They're calling multiple people. And here in New York specifically, insurance is becoming a problem when it comes to buildings, co-ops and condos. Yeah. The amount of coverage that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac expects buildings to have right now is far greater than it was in the past. So that is causing a lot of issues as well in our market here.
And according to Realtor.com, 45% of all U.S. homes are in areas that face at least one severe or extreme climate risk. I'm one of them. So you're not. So
we're just happy you made it here today.
Mondays are, I don't know, it's a combination of looking forward to doing the podcast and then, thinking about the other stuff I have to do today.
So you don't have a case of the Mondays?
No, I don't have a case of the Mondays. This isn't the Office Space, but it's funny. It's one of those movies that I tell my son, like, you should watch. It's pretty funny.
I love that movie.
But it doesn't touch the Gen Zers. It doesn't, they don't.
Because they don't have to work in an office anymore.
Yes, that is true. They don't have to worry about getting shocked when they open the door, and
they don't have TPS reports,
right? Or the woman going, "Accounts payable, please hold." No, they don't have that. So that was my second interview in the history of the impression. The other one was Cookie Monster, which we buried.
And TGI Fridays went out, right? So that was with Jennifer Aniston's character wearing the flare.
Yeah, so you didn't have enough flare. They had to count it. You need a video review,
right?
So that's about it. But we have the Super Bowl coming up. Since we started with basketball, we'll end with football. Now, first of all, do you buy that the refs are in cahoots with the Chiefs? I've seen many things on social media. We're introducing new referee uniforms, and they have Chiefs logos on them. Philly doesn't have a lot of fans outside of Philly because they're the worst fans in professional sports. So
let's just say there were some questionable spots in that Bills game. Highly questionable. And
questionable catches. And
yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes. The guy really is a winner. He's incredible. I'm gonna say 31-27 Chiefs.
See, I think the Chiefs are going to figure out how to contain Saquon, and I think they'll win by more than that. Okay. And I think the experience will. I mean, the Philadelphia has playoff experience for sure, but it was a little too easy for them last week. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
When we were actually watching the game on the plane coming home from Texas, and during the pregame, they asked Kurt Warner, could they compete with the Redskins' explosive offense being there to run team? And Warner goes, Saquon rips off 50-yard touchdowns all the time.
And what happens the first touch? Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
And then you see him with the gun massaging his leg, and he's not fit. So then it was second time he touches, he gets a touchdown.
Listen though, Jaden McDaniels,
Jaden Daniels, yeah,
he's a stud.
I was making Robert Griffin III jokes all season because remember he had that amazing rookie year, but this guy looks like the real deal.
Yeah, he does.
It's just another reason to make Jet fans upset. But now we got our coach and our coordinators and everything. Now we got to figure out who our quarterback is. It's the Jets. I don't feel good about it. I mean, let's be honest. There's just no track record. And even though there's been certain coaches that have taken them to the playoffs multiple times, but when you have the longest playoff drought in professional sports, North American professional sports right now, that's not a good sign. And when your quarterback, is he going to play? Does he want to play? Do we want him to play? 41-year-old dude is in limbo and you have nobody else. Couple of problems.
It's not great, Greg.
And you look at the people that are doing well in the playoffs and teams like Kansas City that are always in the championship because you have a stud quarterback. Buffalo has Josh Allen. You look at that and you go, why can't we have one of those? Well, just one. Since Joe Namath, they haven't had a consistent number one QB.
You got to earn it.
Well, we're not earning anything apparently.
No.
Or the deal with the devil expired after Super Bowl III, and that's it. We don't get to go back. They're the only team that played in the first 3 Super Bowls that has not been back.
I didn't know it's the longest drought in North American sports. They haven't made
any baseball, basketball, football, hockey.
Wow.
And it's been 14 years, I think. And funny, their last 2 appearances were back-to-back championship game appearances. They went to that you get nothing and like it. Mm-hmm. And we don't like it because we're Jets fans. I didn't go to a game this year. Didn't miss it at all. I like to be aggravated from my couch. I just turn the game off.
Yeah.
And not instead of having a 2-hour trip home after watching a pathetic organization.
Yeah, in traffic. It's got to be a miserable drive back.
Well, a lot of times you take these buses there, but the problem is everybody's happy on the way there and then not so much on the way home when they're coming down from their alcohol buzz and they're mad at the game. It's either very quiet or very loud. There's no in between. But again, all in on the Knicks. We found out before we did the show that we were both at the same game last week, Nuggets game. I was surprised that tickets weren't overly expensive because they were very dynamically priced. So the same seat was available that I bought for the Nuggets game for the Laker game. And it was almost 4 times more expensive.
Yeah.
And that's not on the resale market. That's direct. But
the energy was great that night.
I'll say it again. I'm the biggest Rangers fan. They've had a really tough season, but nothing rocks the Garden like the Knicks. Oh. Considering they only have 2, championships.
They have such a likable team right now. I think you have the
too
city
much
kind of rallying around
though. As a St. John's guy,
a lot of Nova.
By the way, I have a complaint about my St. John's.
Now's the time.
Men's team being only 15th. We'll see what the rankings kind. They have number 1 in the Big East. They haven't lost a home game this year. It's got to be Patino they don't like. They should be ranked higher.
I used to be a diehard college basketball fan. I've not followed it so much this year. Where is St. John's when they project the brackets?
6th seed, I think.
They're a 6th seed right now.
Which is ridiculous for the team that's got the tie for the best record in the Big East right now. Now, they have a rough week. They got to play Marquette. They got to play UConn. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But
I'm pulling from.
They never get any respect. They never do.
They got to earn it.
Well, they're earning it. They're playing. Every game is the same. They look terrible in the first half, and then they must take something in the locker room because they come out and play crazy good defense. Although they almost gave it back on Saturday night. But
Patino's always been a fantastic coach.
Well, he can do the 2 things. He can recruit and he can coach.
Yep.
We had Chris Mullen. Mullen was good at recruiting, but coaching's not his thing. Because he's probably going, you can't hit that shot from there?
Yep.
I could.
Yeah.
So, anyhow. All right. Sorry, we digress. Well, that's a show. Next week, we're going to have a jobs report to look at. And, that'll be the next big thing to circle on your calendar to see what's going to happen with rates if the stock market gets angry. And by the way, the stock market is very angry today. The tariffs are set to take hold on Tuesday. I've said a lot about this. We can talk about it next week when we have a little more information, see if they actually do take effect. Is it a negotiating ploy? I guess a lot of people are hoping that's true. But just remember, tariffs by themselves don't cause inflation. Those goods are going to get a little more expensive, but it doesn't mean we're going to have widespread inflation. That only happens when you print too much money. And we're good at that. We do that all the time. But we've been able to contain it, but COVID pushed it too far. We've had tariffs in this country as long as we've had a country. They don't ruin the economy. It is frustrating when you hear that certain foods are going to be more expensive and you could be paying more at the pump. But, until it takes effect and until we see some data, we're going to reserve judgment.
Right.
But the stock market just loves, it's either way too happy or way too upset.
Reactionary, always.
So it's not a good way to start off the week.
Just don't follow it.
It's kind of my job.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll bury my head in the sand. I only stick to my real estate reports. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you, Scott Nadler. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Lena. And thank you, audience, for being so loyal. Again, we're very happy with the viewership and the downloads that we get. Be happier if they were higher, but no, we're happy where they are and the support.
Tell your friends.
Tell a lot of friends. Social media, one click, you can tell the whole world. But thanks again, and we look forward to crossing the line again next week.